The year is 1957. Tensions are running high between the Soviet Union and the United States. The two great superpowers each struggle to gain the upper hand in the continuous struggle to be the world's dominant power. Each has secrets they wish to hide, and both will do whatever it takes to one-up the other.
The U-2 program, which began in 1954, was a program under the direction of the CIA used to secretly take photos of Soviet Russia, as well as many other hostile countries. The program was possible due to the newly invented U-2 plane, which could fly at altitudes up to 70,000 feet, which was thought to be undetectable by Soviet radar, and therefore unable to be shot down. Francis Gary Powers, born on August 17, 1929, in Jenkins, Kentucky, was a pilot in the United States Air Force who was one of a select group of pilots chosen to fly the new U-2 spy plane. He was the most experienced U-2 pilot in the program, logging the most hours of flight of any pilot, as well as flying the most missions over hostile countries. 15 days before the much-anticipated East-West Summit in Paris, Powers began a flight over the USSR, planning on photographing intercontinental ballistic missile sites in Kazakhstan and east of Moscow, before eventually landing in Norway. Unfortunately for Powers, the Russians learned of the U-2 flights, and their air-to-ground missiles were put on high alert. The plane was eventually shot down near what is now the northern border of Kazakhstan, but the impact of the missile prevented Powers from using the self-destruct switch, and he was forced to parachute down to the ground. After landing, he was quickly captured by the Soviets. Although the pilot's instructions were to destroy the plane and to use a deadly needle to poison themselves, he was unable to destroy the plane and chose not to use the poison. Soviet officials tracked his parachute all the way to the ground and were waiting for him when he landed. He was quickly taken to Moscow, where he endured 11 hours of interrogation a day, 7 days a week. During this time, Powers tried to cooperate by giving his captors non-vital information, as well as information that he assumed the Soviets already knew. William Ginrikovich Fisher, known in America by the alias Rudolf Abel, was born in 1903 in the United Kingdom. He moved to Russia in the 1920s, where he joined the military before eventually becoming a spy for the Soviet Union. He lived in the United States trying to get information back to the Soviet Union, but was arrested in New York City by the FBI in 1957. Rudolf Abel was convicted of espionage in a trial held in New York, but avoided the death penalty because James Donovan, a civilian lawyer, convinced the judge that it was possible that a United States spy could be captured by the Soviet Union in the near future. If this were to happen, he thought, they could use Abel to exchange spies with the Soviet Union.
Most Americans didn't think about Americans spying on the Soviet Union. Most Americans thought that was something that the Soviets did to other peoples. They thought that the United States was somehow uniquely better. Although more educated and engaged Americans during the Cold War were certainly aware that there was a CIA and that the U.S. was trying to figure out other nations as well. And mostly they were supportive of it, except for a brief period in the 1970s when Congress, in the backwash of Vietnam, losing the war in Vietnam, did a major investigation of the CIA.
When this possibility became reality, James Donovan, the same lawyer who also represented Rudolf Abel a few years prior, was called upon to make the deal. In the trade, the U.S. received Francis Powers, as well as Frederick Pryor, a U.S. student who had been studying abroad in East Berlin and was trapped on the Soviet side when the Berlin Wall was put up. The Soviets, however, received Rudolf Abel, their spy who had been arrested in 1957. The trade itself was completed on Glennecke Bridge in Berlin, which was chosen because the bridge linked West Berlin to the Soviet-controlled East Germany. The trade itself was fairly straightforward, with both sides meeting in the middle and peacefully swapping prisoners. It highlighted one of the few times during the Cold War that America and the Soviet Union worked together to achieve a successful negotiation. The successful trade was praised by many Americans, but Powers himself was initially received very coldly by the American people. Many Americans believed that Powers handled the situation poorly, as he did not activate this plane's self-destruct mechanism in the air and did not commit suicide before his capture. His name was cleared after a public hearing before Congress, where he was cleared of any wrongdoing in the entire ordeal. Powers returned to work for the CIA, teaching new agents ways to withhold secrets during an interrogation, as well as teaching new pilots how to fly the U-2 plane. He wrote a memoir about his experiences, titled Operation Overflight, a memoir of the U-2 incident.
Mr. Powers, you said the Russians told you repeatedly that you were hit by the first shot of a rocket. Not the first, the very first. By the very first shot of a rocket. Yes. And you said they said it so often that you inclined to believe that they didn't believe it. Now, could you explain that?
No, I said that they said it so often that I was inclined not to believe it. If they had used a rocket, it seemed to me that the act would have spoken for itself, and they shouldn't have to keep telling me that it was the very first shot of something.
And you feel really it might have been a near miss. Is that your own feeling?
Well, I'm sure that there was no direct hit. There was no impact of any kind.
Tragically, Powers died in 1977 after a helicopter he was piloting crashed due to a fuel gauge malfunction.